listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Good morning, you listeners out there. I am delighted that you are here today. As usual, I look so forward to these recordings because it's so exciting to share what the world has out there for us to hear. And I've been very fortunate in that I get good interviews for you. So today is no exception. You're going to walk away with learned information, and I think that will really help you if you're struggling or just continuing to build your life and put purpose into your life. So I'm delighted that you are here today. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest. David Dennis is his name. David is the president and chief executive officer of Eckerd, one of the nation's largest nonprofits providing workforce development, Job Corps, juvenile justice, and world welfare services across the country. He's certified in so many different areas with professional counseling, marriage and family therapist, and childhood administrator. David has indeed lived what he has written into his book. We are going to be talking about his book. But before I move into that, I want you to know that David is married and he lives in Clearwater, Florida, and they have 5 adult boys. I mean, men. Sorry, David. I'm sure they're all grown now.
One girl.
Oh, you have one girl.
Yes, but 4 boys and 1 girl.
Well, weren't you lucky to get that girl in there?
Oh man, we're so blessed to get her.
Yes. Oh, so you're going to tell us today about your book, which is called Gameness, Land on Your Feet, Not on Your Feelings, which is an interesting title, David. But it is about finding advantages in the adversity that we face. So everybody has that in their life. So this is going to be a great tool for us to use, I think. So welcome. I'm delighted that you're here.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Honored to join you and to be with your guests.
Yes.
Your listening audience.
Yes. Well, many of my women out there may, like everybody, we've gone through difficult times. Some are more intense than others. Some are more dysfunctional than others. But we don't have a ride that doesn't give us some adversity in our life. It's just part of being human, I think, and living. So you use a term in your title that might need a little explanation, and that is gameness. What is that?
Gameness is a word that, thus your reason for asking, is a word that's not used very much in our vocabulary today. It was used more back in the 1800s. When I actually did a search, I found one poem where it was used in literature in the past. And gameness, if you look it up in the dictionary, it has a beautiful definition. I included that in my book. It's really got layers of meaning. But one of the definitions, or kind of sub-definitions, that I really liked in the dictionary is the 4 attributes or 4 defining characteristics of what gameness is. Mm-hmm. I think it encapsulates it really well. And that's a never quit mindset, resoluteness to purpose, a fighting spirit, and the will that's required to act beyond your feelings. Mm-hmm. And I can end there, or I can tell you a little bit more about how I got fixated on that word, if you'd like.
Oh, tell us more about that.
I wrote this book. If you've read the book, you're aware that I wrote the book for our 5 children. I lost my father when I was very young, and one of those empty places in my life, my entire life, is a longing I've always had to have had a conversation with him. Words of wisdom, advice, those kinds of things, even some stories. I have none of that. And so I decided I wanted to leave something for our kids that they would have after I'm gone. But I didn't want to just leave reflections in a journal or something like that. I decided I wanted to hone down that, in my opinion, from my life that I've lived so far and all my experiences of counseling tens of thousands of individuals in counseling and serving so many people through social services, that what would be the one thing that I would pass on to my children that I believe would give them the greatest opportunity to live their life to their fullest potential?
Mm-hmm.
And as I began to try to hone that down to one word that would encapsulate that for the title of the book, I, I it was gameness, because the things that I was writing for them really were those four attributes that define what gameness is. So that's how I came to it, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's what the definition is.
Mm-hmm. Well, does everybody get to read a first chapter?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
they
the introduction and first chapter are free to anybody who wants to download it from the book's website.
Yes, yes. Well, I did that this morning, and it was very interesting. You didn't have an easy life growing up. You had some bumps and valleys in there.
Like we all do.
Yes, we all do, at different intensities, of course.
Yes.
But no matter I think of many of my audience, which are primarily women, I believe, many of them have gone through divorce, separation, loss of job. All of these are adversities that cause them to step back and kind of look at their lives a little bit. So I was looking at this and I was going, what a great tool this would have been to have had what you've written in your book. So
Yeah, Joyce, one of the reasons when you notified me about the opportunity and the honor of being asked to be with you on your show, that really excited me, and it means so much to me, is your audience, and your own personal story with the women that you care so much for, and you spend so much time trying to encourage and lift up. You know, uh, my my father passed when I was young, and my mother had already lost her first husband before she lost my father. My mother came from extreme poverty growing up. Her own father abandoned her when she was a girl, just left, never came back one day, and her mom passed away when she was a young girl, kind of raised by the neighbors and her siblings. So she went through extreme adversity, no high school education or education beyond it, no job skills training. Father followed my father around on a construction job to job until he passed. And so she found herself without her husband, two little kids to raise, no education, no support network, and she didn't get a second wind like you in your time helping people discover they can have. And nobody was there to speak encouragement into her life, and she became an alcoholic. And she drank herself to a point of incompetency. My sister and I were removed from her care by Child Protective Services and placed in foster care. We ultimately got reunited and raised by the same family. But she later never could move beyond that. And she eventually tragically fell asleep one night while drinking. She was drunk and while smoking a cigarette, and died in a fire in her house, in her bed. Tragic ending, but tragic ending because she didn't have the encouragement that you're providing. I don't know who else listening to your show today, but in my mind, I imagine if there could be women that really are struggling with a lot of deep pain. And so I hope in some way that our discussion can provide some encouragement to them that my mom didn't get.
Yeah, you you found these tools through your search, but you also grew in your religion along the path, which was a big change for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I like all of us, Joyce, I think that, we live in a world that is uncertain, unfair, and oftentimes unpleasant.
Yes.
And so, everyday adversity knocks on our door when we get up and demands something of us. And so in much of our childhood, we didn't choose our families, we didn't choose our environments, we didn't choose all those all of life is really acting upon us from the time we're born until we become a young adult. And we begin to formulate self-perception, perception of others, self-esteem, even our worldviews and our values. but if you're not careful, those things that are kind of acted upon you can shape a faulty worldview.
Yeah.
And so that was what happened to me. I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of fear of being rejected or abandoned. Again,
Yeah.
the second family I got, I was afraid I could lose that one too as a kid. So I never really settled well as a kid. I was always, you know, you know, it was just very stressful. And so navigating all of that. But after I got out of high school, I came to a point that I was really searching for meaning and purpose in my life. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. I didn't know kind of why am I here? And
Yeah.
really out of desperation, I started reading the Bible. And I didn't understand many of the words, but I got a dictionary and looked up the words I didn't understand. And while there's always plenty of mystery in faith and in the Bible, there's plenty of things I still don't understand. There were plenty of things there that I did, and it became a compass for me and an anchor in my life, and
Mhm.
it really gave me a sense of purpose and direction. And so that was the key turning point in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, you shared, we may have already discussed this. You shared it. There is a defining moment that I think everybody comes to a Y in the road, and they go, which way am I going to go? And then they just choose it. And because of that choice, their life totally takes a different direction. But they almost have to have that moment of transition for life to begin.
Yeah.
So
That was my fork in the road.
that was your fork in the road,
That
reading
was
the
my
Bible.
Yeah,
Yep.
it really was. And it was very liberating for me because for me, I found a sense of permanency uh, in my relationship with God that had not experienced in my family of origin. And
Yes.
so that was a powerful thing for me, for a kid
Mhm.
who'd been orphaned. I still remember there was one verse that I read when I began to read it that it was like a moth to a flame, and it said, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And another verse next to it was that he would never leave or forsake me. Well, that verse may not stand out to anyone else, but to me, that was what I needed to hear. And so that was the beginning point for me. And like I said, it's been a great guide for me since then, since I was
Yeah.
19, actually.
Yeah. Uh, s- so, um, why did you decide to write this? Well, you said for your children, but the message is so much stronger for everyone. There's
Yeah.
somebody out there that everybody could use. I mean, I could use it, and I'm even.
Hey, I review it myself. I
Yeah.
reread it. These are principles that are timeless principles, and they are for everyone. I've got businessmen using this in their leadership teams. There's discussions at the end of the book. They're reading it. They're discussing the questions. I had a fund manager the other day order 100 books for his 100 top investors because the
Oh, good.
market was struggling. I've got a group of prison inmates that just use it in their book club. They're using it. I've got a group of young ladies that are in a treatment center right now, teenage girls that are using it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's so rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And the thing is, Joyce, I was just reading some statistics recently, and predictions are that this year in our country, in America, there'll be a 1.2 million suicide attempts.
Mm.
10 million people will be arrested, 700,000 of those teenagers. There'll be almost 700,000 marriages will crash and burn and divorce.
Mhm.
There'll be 250,000 more children placed into the foster care system.
Wow.
And so that's a lot of quitting, you know,
Mhm.
that's a lot of pain. And
Mhm.
there's probably a lot of pain that contributed to those decisions to quit.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there's a lot of collateral pain that is a fallout of those people's lives for those decisions. So
Right.
there's a real important need in our society, not only to avoid that pain, but as important, or maybe more importantly, to for people to really get locked on to how to cultivate a mindset of gameness so that they can uh, live their life to their fullest potential. That's
Mhm.
that's what we want to see and experience the joy of that.
Well, can we go back and break down those four just a little bit? Um,
Absolutely.
the f- up upgrade your perspective, a never quit mindset. Is that how you'd like to start it?
That's great. And that that one's so important, Joyce, because as we touched a little bit earlier, all of us face circumstances in our life every day that we have no control over. It could
Right.
be anything from environmental to relational to health, uh, financial, losing our
Mhm.
job, anything. So when these events happen, one of the most important things that we need to do is when adversity comes into our life, you tend to respond in one of three ways: surrender,
Mhm.
or just try to survive it, which is not bad. It's important to survive it, but more importantly, we want to get to the point where we subdue it, where we
Mhm.
get stronger and wiser because of it. And so that's really what gameness is about. Resilience is about surviving and enduring adversity. Gameness is that's bouncing back.
Mhm.
Gameness is about bouncing forward. It's not bouncing back in spite of our adversity. It's bouncing forward better, wiser, like you've done. You've gone from a pain of a loss and your divorce and that adversity, and you didn't just say, "Well, I'm going to try to survive this." No, you
Mhm.
said, "I'm going to harvest this pain, and I'm going to actually go out. I'm going to use this pain as a turning point in my life. I'm going to actually become a person who is encouraging hundreds of thousands of other women because
Mhm.
of what? Your pain." I mean, it's
Mhm.
beautiful. I mean, that's
Mhm.
the story of gameness. So the never quit mindset's important because that means that you've got to upgrade your perspective. I can't change the pain that comes into my life, but I
Right.
can change my attitude toward it and how I see it. So it means that I learn to train myself to
Mhm.
to see things better even before I see better things.
Mm. Mhm.
You know,
Right. Mhm.
and that's a game changer. So that's really the most important piece of never quit mindset. Don't quit. Don't panic. Don't let your emotions rule. Pause and constructively assess your situation and say, okay, that is painful. How can I see this better and make good out of it, even if I can't see the better things yet?
Mhm. Mhm. It's been so interesting over the years interviewing many women that have gone through difficult life changes, and they're coming back or coming on second wind because they've written a book, they've created a new career, they have advanced in their
Yes,
life, and they're living
absolutely.
happy lives. And
Absolutely.
it's so rewarding. And I hope that's why some of my listeners come back to me to listen, is because second wind is really about the second wind
Yep.
that we get that keeps us moving forward. So it's been really uh, brought a great amount of joy in my life, knowing that there are those that have
Absolutely.
listened. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the second one is for fulfill your potential. Resolute. Well, maybe you should read resolutionist to a purpose.
Yes, it's resoluteness to a purpose is the second one. And
Hmm.
what that means is that it's really managing your potential. That first one is managing your
Wow.
perspective,
Yeah.
okay, in
Hmm.
those when you're in those situations. The second one is managing your potential, which means that whatever you're going through, you need to have your mind fixed on where you're going. And so I have a little plaque on my desk that I keep that says, "Only those who see the invisible will do the impossible." And
Mm.
so, you know, everything that's built a great life included is built
Hmm.
twice, once in your mind and then literally. And so,
Hmm.
there's a great verse in the Bible that says, "Without a vision, the people shall perish." And
Mm.
I looked up the words to that one time, and the word perish is a word for atrophy,
Hmm.
dying,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know. The opposite of that word is thriving. And so, if you don't have a vision for your life to propel you forward, uh, that you're pursuing, and that means the rest of the canvas of your life that hasn't been painted on yet. It's your future.
Hmm.
You can't
Mhm.
control your past. As
Right.
Kierkegaard reminded us, life must be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward. So it's so important to decide, come to the point that you understand what your life purpose is, and that means you've got to assess what's important to you.
Mm.
What are your highest values?
Yes.
Because that's going to instruct uh, what you commit to as your purpose in life, and so that's what in the tough times, that's what's going to be your energy and your direction and your compass and
Mhm.
your anchor. So it's a lot of times we focus a lot on our past and we can't get a redo.
Right.
And so
It's true.
this is really about, you know, and a lot of people never have really assessed what is my potential. I mean, would you have seen yourself doing podcast, uh, you know, years ago? I mean, you probably would have laughed about that, right?
Yes. Right.
And
I
so,
would.
but at some point you imagined doing something to seize and harvest the pain you've gone through and do something with it, and you did.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
first you had to imagine it, and then you had to take the actions. But that's beautiful. And everybody that's listening to your show has to ask themselves, what's my purpose going to be?
Yes. Knowing that purpose is sometimes even stops people. But I think if they just sit down and just go very basic, what do I love to do? How
Bingo.
do I enjoy my life? What brings me pleasure? Some
That
of those things.
you
Have you
you that's exactly right.
yeah. Have you ever done a vision board?
I have.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great way to harness in on your vision.
You know, I'll tell you, Joyce, when I don't do private practice counseling anymore, but
Mhm.
when I did, one of the things that amazed me was, and I found it to be one of the most powerful things was, I got out of graduate school, and the intake forms you use when you meet with clients when they first come in, a lot of times they fill them out before they come in, but first few sessions, we would inevitably spend a lot of time talking about, you know, what brought you to counseling, what were the precipitating painful issues, let's talk about your past, your childhood, you know,
Mhm.
and we would do that talking for way too many sessions about
Right.
all that. And
Hmm.
one night I was on my way home, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, we have no questions on this form that ask the client, what is your purpose in life?
Right.
What do you want to feel? How
Hmm.
would you like for your life to be? It's all
Hmm.
about how bad my boss was, or my spouse was, or how my
Yeah.
kids, or I lost my job. Those things, I'm not minimizing the pain of those, and you do need to talk about them. But there's a
Mhm.
reason our rear view mirror's that big and our windshield's that big. Yeah,
Oh, I like that.
you know, we need to keep glancing up, be aware of what's behind us. Let's not repeat some of those things, and some
Yeah.
maybe we do want to repeat. But where are we going? And it was amazing. I changed my forms and I added a question on there. What is your purpose in life? And
Mhm.
I added some more, though, like the ones you said, you know. And I had sometimes it would really frustrate people because
Yes.
they had never even asked themselves that question. One of the
Mhm.
things I encourage people to do is, I mean, I have an ultimate purpose, and that's connected to my faith.
Yeah.
But my day-to-day kind of mission on life each day as I go about living my life is I encourage people to come up with what their mission statement is, 10 words or less, and write it down. Make yourself write it down and
Hmm.
make yourself keep it under 10 words so you can remember it and you
Yeah.
can begin to think about it. And mine is to advance the potential and purpose of others. And
Yes.
so in my life, that truly is uh, my engine. And I ask myself that frequently, you know, how am I doing? You know, what am I doing? And in this situation, how am I going to advance the potential and purpose of this person, whether it's an employee, a coworker, a family member, one of my children, my wife?
Mhm.
Uh, I, that's my mission. I'm committed to that. That was another reason I wrote the book.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, let's go on to the third one, which is tackle your problems of fighting spirit.
So the fighting spirit is the third one, and the action on that is to really manage your problems. And as we talked earlier, the bottom line is we're going to have problems. Nobody avoids that. It's just our reality. And as I said earlier, when problems come, we're either going to surrender to them, or we're
Mhm.
going to focus on trying to survive them, or we'll do what you did. We'll subdue them. And what that means is when problems come knocking at your door demanding something of you, you demand something back. And what you say to that is, okay, that is painful. It was painful, but how can I take this pain and it create power in me, not have power over me?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
And so, and that's what you've done. And
Mm.
you're modeling that with your show. It's like you went through a tough blow. That was painful. But you didn't just say, well, I'm still here. You said, no, I'm taking that, and it's gonna grow power in me, which you share, and you're gonna empower others. That's gameness. And so that's really what that's about. And so that means tackle your problems. You're not, one of the things I love, and I know maybe a lot of your guests aren't people of faith and they don't read the Bible or anything. Please excuse some of my references to it if you're a listener that doesn't. I do. It's part of my orientation, so I share from that. But if you read the Bible and if you believe in the creation story when God created Adam and Eve, I think it's amazing. The first thing he said to Adam and Eve after he creates this amazing universe, and he says, "Go subdue the earth and take dominion of every living thing." And of course, we're living things, which means take dominion of us. That's kind of a military term, and it means take charge. It's not, he didn't say, hey, here's this gorgeous universe and I've created you, and I hope you enjoy it and hope everything goes well. Those are like kind of spectator terminologies. It's like, he didn't, he instead, he talked to us as we are the stewards of what he's created. And he said, go give us your best shot. Take charge of this. The Navy SEALs, they have a mantra. They say to one another when they get parachuted into a war-torn area that's full of chaos and these situations we can't even imagine, really. And they look at each other and remind each other, and they say this statement: remember, we're not here to survive this, we're here to take charge of this. I think it's a great mantra for life. We're not here to survive life, we're here to take charge of it. And when problems come, we're not victims. We may be victimized sometimes, we may be wounded, we may be hurt, but we are assigned to take charge, take dominion of this, and make something good out of it. Be determined to make good out of this. And I think it's a powerful picture in a way to live our life.
David, and I'm asking this because I really don't know, is there a verse in the Bible that talks about you were given all that you need to build what you want?
Yeah, I think there's lots of verses.
Lots of them.
Yeah, there's lots of verses in that. And not only are there lots of verses about that, there's a verse that I love in Romans 8:28 that says, and I love this promise from God, that he is committed to working all things together for good to those that love him or are committed to his purposes. It doesn't say in that verse, all things are good. It says that God is committed to working all things together for good for those who are committed to his purposes. So we have to adopt that same philosophy. Everything in our life is not good. Right. And it's Pollyannish to act like it is.
Yeah.
But what it means to take dominion is to say, that's taking charge of your life and say, you know what? If God's trying to work with me to work all things together for good, I better be a good partner and be committed to doing the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
So focusing on your problems with, this isn't good, I'm not going to act like it is, but I am determined to work it all together for good. I have one little story in the book that if you haven't read the whole book, you haven't seen it yet, but I was visiting friends of mine in Vermont, retired political attorney, retirement gig for he and his wife was a Christmas tree farm and an apple orchard.
Yeah.
I broke my leg skiing the first week I was there. So I was there with them for a few weeks, convalescing, and I love apple cider. So I was drinking way too much of it. And one night I said to him, I said, I have to ask, how do you make apple cider? I said, I'm guessing you've got some selection process to find just the perfect apples to make it taste so good. And I was imagining, the tallest ladder from Home Depot and some special, And he laughed and he said, that's so funny that you asked, because he said, it's ironic. He said, apple cider is actually made from all the bruised and damaged apples. And Yeah, he said,
Really?
yeah, he said when the people are picking them and the ladders hit them and bruise them, or they get packed too tight in the box on their way into the market, or kids are out in the orchard playing and knock them down. He said that they get bruised, fall to the ground and get bruised. So they either lay there and rot, or we pick them up and repurpose them and put them in the apple press, the cider press they call it, and
Mm-hmm.
they make the apple cider juice because they can't go sit on the shelf all shiny and perfect with the others.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, it's like we're all damaged, we're all bruised, right?
Right.
And so let's just say in life you had plans for plan A for your life or your marriage or your business or your relationship or whatever, but you get knocked off and you take a fall and you get bruised. Well, we can either lay there and rot, or
Mm-hmm.
we can repurpose ourselves and get in that cider press. And here's what's cool: the apple still that apple still made it to the market, but there was a detour to the dream. I'm not on the shelf. I'm not on the shelf in the produce aisle. I'm in this jug and I'm cider. So you have to be adaptable. You got to be willing to pivot and say, okay, I didn't like getting bruised. That stunk, but I am game. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tackle that problem. I'm not just going to try to survive it. I'm going to still make it to the store. I got a
Mm-hmm.
detour to my dream, and I'm going to make cider out of my bruise.
That's a wonderful example story. Now, that's not in the book, is it?
Yes,
It's
it
just,
is. Yes.
it is. Oh,
Yes.
good, good,
Yes.
good, good.
Yeah.
Another reason to read the book.
Absolutely. I've got a lot of, I try to use a lot of stories like that so people
Yes.
kind of remember the principles and, and stuff, because people can relate to those.
Right. All right. The fourth one is the will required to act. Master your performance.
And actually, the full statement for that really is the will required to act beyond your feelings. And so, as you can see the progression here. So the first one is never quit mindset, which is managing your perspective. The second one is resoluteness to purpose, which is managing your potential. The third one is fighting spirit, which is managing your problems. The last one is the will required to act beyond your feelings, and that's mastering your performance, managing your performance. And what this is talking about, I actually almost titled the book, Who Cares How You Feel? And
Well, I do.
I know, and I had one of the editors said, that may come across too insensitive and people may not understand what you're saying. And I was going to use it just to be provocative because I love William James. He's an old philosopher psychologist from many years ago. And he had a saying once that said, I don't sing because I'm happy. I'm happy because I sing. And so this whole chapter is really about cultivating a disciplined response to any situation in life, but really a disciplined pathway with your purpose as well. And it's about learning to act ourselves to new ways of feeling instead of trying to feel ourselves to new ways of acting.
Wow.
I don't feel like going to the gym. Later tonight when I go on my long walk, I'm not going to feel like doing that. But I always feel great afterwards, after I've done the thing. And so, it's endorphins aren't free. And as Jocko Willink says, discipline is freedom. And so many people, as simple as it sounds, one of the most important things they lack in their life that's preventing them from experiencing the joy they could have in their life and the happiness they could have in their life is that it's relying on their feelings too much to live their life. And I really believe it's without that, forget the other three that we just talked about. And it's that important. And so I can't stress that enough. It's the most liberating thing we can do is to develop discipline in our life. We have too many people are falling what I call victim. It's a virus of victimhood. We don't mean to get there, but we find ourselves in a situation where we allow ourselves to fall victim to our hurt feelings, and that's dangerous.
I was thinking, I couldn't help but think about this. So many people use the fear of moving forward. I mean, to get up and sing, they're scared, so they use that to limit their voice. And I would this fit In the feeling area?
It's exactly what I'm talking about. The cure for that is to act yourself out of it. And so get up and sing, and that feeling goes away. You know what I'm saying? So that's the power of acting, and it's that's what this last section of the book is about, and it's just so important. I love the quote by L.J. Swinens, and I actually wrote this in my Bible 40 years ago. I was in school and I was visiting a friend, and it was on a poster on his wall, and it said, "Happy are those who dream dreams and are willing to pay the price to make them come true."
Mm.
And so it just really hit me, and it's been such a powerful message that I try to cling to in my life. Everybody can think thoughts and dream dreams and imagine things, but happiness doesn't come from that. Happiness can only come from those who are willing to dream the dream and then pay the price to make it come true. That's what this last section of the book is about. Is are you willing to pay the price to make it come true? I tell people that just dreaming dreams and having conversations and imagining doing something meaningful, but not taking the action to do it, is akin to spilling black coffee in your lap wearing dark slacks. You get a warm feeling from it, but you have nothing to show for it. And so this is exciting stuff. A lot of people don't realize the word happiness originated from the word happenstance. And it was a word given to mean that when your circumstances are going great, you're feeling great. Okay. Stance and circumstance. Well, that's not joy. Joy is much better, because joy is a level of happiness that you can have in spite of your circumstances, because even in those circumstances that aren't pleasant, you're living out your purpose in your life defiantly, even, in spite of the adversity. You have a set of values in your life that, regardless of what your circumstances are, I have a set of values that my purpose is based on, and I'm going to react to my circumstances based on my principles and values of my life. And I feel great joy from that, regardless of what's going on around me. A lot of people don't have that, so they don't ever get to experience joy. If things are going well, they're feeling well. And if they're not, they're not.
Well, that leads me into, we're at the end of our show, our time together, but I know that you've been shared that my word this year is joy. Okay. It came out of Julia Cameron's It's Never Too Late to Begin Again. And she breaks down some things in her book, but one of them was joy. And it made me start thinking about joy. So I've asked all of my guests this year to have answered 2 questions for me. So are you game? Game. Did you get that?
I did. I am game.
Okay. So if you would, please share with me a moment that you go back to when I say, have you experienced joy? There's usually one, and probably more than one. But would you share that moment with us?
Yeah, it's what I shared earlier. It was in spite of my rough life starting, and in spite of all that loss, as I said, lost my family, my home, my sister, by the age of 5. But what I got from that was that I learned 2 really important lessons at a super young age that a lot of people never learn, or they learn so late they don't get the benefit of it. And that one is, wow, be grateful for everything you get every day, because no day's guaranteed. I experienced that. When you lose everything by age 5, you realize there's no sure things. So it established in me kind of an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The other thing that early childhood loss did for me was it gave me a really high sense of urgency, because I realized there are no sure things, there are no guarantees. I've always treated my kids with, I think they would agree with this, exceptional attention. My wife the same. I try to do the same thing at work. My kids never see me without getting a hug. because I live my life like I may not have it tomorrow. And so I've always had a great sense of gratitude and urgency. That's given me a lot of joy in my life. And it really came out of that loss. And so wasn't exactly maybe the kind of, event that some people would say where they got their joy, but that was the initial, that's where that joy began to come from for me.
Mm-hmm.
It
Well,
was
you
a painful lesson, but one that
yes,
a great gift.
yeah. Well, the next question is about those tools that you would give to somebody or recommend, the tools that would move them toward experiencing their joy. And you did share with us one, thankfulness, being grateful. And
Yep.
is there another one that you would think of to add to that?
I'll tell you, that's really what this book is about. Is living your life to your fullest potential is living a life that is not tied to your circumstances, the way others treat you. Like once again, life is uncertain, it's unfair, and it's oftentimes unpleasant. Living a life of gameness means you've learned to manage your perspective and see things better before you can even see better things. It means to live with purpose so that you can see the invisible, so you can do the impossible, and manage your potential, be moving forward in your life. The third one is fighting spirit, and it's deciding that your problems are going to be a way to grow power in your life, not have power over you. The last one is to live your life with the will to act in spite of your feelings. And those principles that are the 4 sections in this book are what free you up to live with joy, because you're living a life not tethered to circumstances. Because since you have no control of your circumstances, you can't predict them, and there's no sure things, you're going to live in a constant state of anxiety, maybe fear, maybe depression, maybe apathy, maybe hopelessness, if you just sit around and wait for the next thing to happen. I mean, that's crazy. But instead, you can't control those things, but you can control your mindset. You can cultivate it. Nobody's born with gameness. It's a mindset that you cultivate and develop. And once you develop that, whatever you're facing, you face it through your mindset of gameness. And it's like, okay, this is happening. How am I going to decide to see this? Where am I going to find the good in it? How am I going to harvest this into something that's going to grow power in my life, not make me a victim? And what do I need to do today to act myself to a different way of feeling? If I don't like how I'm feeling, I've got control of that. So it's a way of living that the end product of it is to have a joy-filled, fulfilling, meaningful life, in spite of your circumstances.
Yeah. Wow. Such good information, David. I've just loved every moment of this. We've had a great time sharing, and I know my audience out there is walking around, jumping up and down, ready to go get this book. So thank you for writing it. Thank you for coming to Second Wind and spending time with us. And I look forward to reading my own copy further than the first chapter that's offered on your site. So anyway, if you'll just wait a moment, I'm going to say goodbye to my listeners and be back with you.
Thank you.
So what do you think, guys? Pretty good, huh? Wasn't this good? Did you want to go buy that book right now? Well, that would be a wise thing to do, I think. There's so much building power in the words that you would read off the pages. So I thank you for being here today. This is a real opportunity to share. As you know, I always encourage you to share with your friends. I think the real share is to come listen to the podcast, and then they can read the book and be almost empowered as a must read. So thank you for being here today. I look forward to knowing that you're here next week and that you have a very happy, pleasant week. So thank you for stopping by. I'll talk to you later.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.